This is a Mennonite Country Auction informational video, and my name is Butch Guerin. Our guest today is Lorene Stucky of McPherson, Kansas, a dear lady and my mother-in-law. For many years she has made poppy seed roll, a Swiss Mennonite delicacy for her very appreciative family. In addition, for a number of years she has generously provided several rolls for sale at the Mennonite Country Auction, a joint effort of the Mennonite Churches of Washington, held on the grounds of the Mennonite Church in rural Ritzville, Washington on the first Saturday of October each year. The proceeds from this event go directly to Mennonite Central Committee, to be used for worldwide aid and disaster relief. The poppy seed rolls, or machuchen, as they are sometimes called, are a highly prized item on the auction. Through the years, thousands of dollars have been raised for MCC through the sale of Lorene's poppy seed rolls at the Mennonite Country Auction. As one might expect, many people over the years have inquired about the popularity of the poppy seed rolls. What is so special about them? How are they made? Where does the seed come from? Well, today Lorene is going to answer all those questions and actually take us step by step through the preparation process, right up to the end product. After you've watched this video, you may want to try this at home. So let's get started and see what we can learn. Thanks for sharing with us today, Lorene. Let's start with a very basic question. Where does poppy seed come from?
The poppy seed comes from a plant. It's a very fragile plant. Sometimes one has to wonder how such good stuff can come from such a fragile plant.
We know that in Kansas you plant your own poppy seed, and I'm wondering where you get your seed from.
Well, our seed that we have in Kansas came from when our Mennonite forefathers came from Russia to America. They brought some along, and that was in 1874.
When do you plant poppy seed?
It has to be planted early in the year. We try and get it in by February, usually Washington's birthday, if the weather is favorable. But I have planted as late as April when we just couldn't get it in. It was too wet and late frost, and so sometimes that's the way it is. But that particular year, I had 3 gallons when I planted in April. I don't think that's the way it always will be. But
when do you harvest poppy seed?
usually in June. In Kansas, that's harvest time, when they cut the wheat. It seldom fails that the poppy is not ripe when there's wheat to be cut. Always I cut the poppy when the wheat is ripe.
So they both ripen about the same time. How do you know when it's ready for harvest?
Well, the heads turn brown, and the top leaves are beginning to dry up and fall off, and when the heads snap, like well, this is a short one. You just when they break, then it's ready to go.
When you can snap the stalk.
Yes. It just you hear it crack.
How many heads per plant are there usually?
Well, if you have 5 or 6 heads of plant, then you're very satisfied. That looks very nice. But there are a lot of plants that have less, 3 and 2, and if it's too close together, maybe there's just 1. But one time, that wasn't in our garden, but there was a plant that had 11 heads. You just had to marvel. I mean, how a plant can have 11 heads, but we should have a picture of it, but we don't have one.
How do you actually harvest the poppy seed?
By hands. With our hands, you break each one separate. And you don sometimes I already wore a big sack tied around me, and so I wouldn't have to run so much, but take a container, big bucket, or anything like that, and It's a lot of running and a lot of, if it's a good year. But you do that gladly if you can get the heads in. That's what we want to do.
What do you consider a good yield?
A good yield is if you can have, if you get a gallon of poppy from a bushel basket of heads, a basket like this, then you're very well satisfied. That is usually a good, say a good heaping basket full of heads. You get a gallon of poppy.
So it takes a lot of heads to get a gallon of poppy seed.
Yes.
That makes it pretty valuable. What does it sell for?
This year, there were a few who sold some for $8 a pound. Now that is very expensive. A lot more than when I sold it for $2 a pound. It went up slowly. It was 5, 6, and last year or this year there was a few who sold it for 8. Now that's expensive food.
That is. Too bad we can't sell our wheat for $8 a pound. How do you actually get the seeds out of the heads?
Each one separate. You just cut the top off. I can show you. You just roll them. Just cut the top off like this. You put it in your hand. If it looks good, you put it in the cup. Sometimes it's not well matured or a lot of brown stuff, so it goes in a different cup. But that's how you do it, each separate.
That's all there is to it. I imagine that when you open those heads up and pour the seeds out, you also get some material that you don't want in there too, like chaff and whatnot.
There's a lot of chaff that falls. You can't avoid that. It's just that's the way it is.
How do you get rid of that?
Well, I like to sift it. The seeds fall through the sifter, and a lot of the chaff remains in the sifter. So that's a good way to do it.
But in addition to the sifting, you also have to wash the seed too, don't you?
I wash all my seed.
Mm.
It's I like it much better than some just winnow it and think that that's all that's necessary. But I think I can taste it. I put 3 cups or 6 cups or 8 cups, not more than 8 cups in a dishpan, and take it under the faucet and stir it and maybe have several inches of water on top. And the chaff and the dirt just comes to the top. You can't see what you have in the bowl. It's that. But you pour it off and do that about a half a dozen times, or as many times as necessary, until the water is clear. And then the last, when you drain the water, you'd better be careful, because all of a sudden it could go in the sink and you'd lose it all. I had several scares already, but I've never lost it.
That would be bad to have that valuable poppy seed go down the drain, wouldn't it? After you've washed it, how do you go about drying it then?
That I dry it in a cloth bag. I just one like this. Probably was a flour sack yet. Now you can't get flour in cloth bags anymore. But I put them in here. Not more than 8 cups. That's plenty for a bag like this. Put it in here and sew it shut with the sewing machine. And so it's secure. Put it on the wash line to dry. I'll put about 10 or 12 clothespins to make sure the wind doesn't take it.
So you hang it on the wash line, and then you leave it. Do you leave it on there overnight?
No, I never leave it out overnight. It's usually damp in the morning, and I don't like to leave it out overnight. There's another reason though too. I don't want anyone to pick it off the line.
How long does this drying process take generally?
Well, that depends on the weather. if the weather is favorable, four good drying days will do it. But you have to be very careful to get it good and dry. If it gets the least bit moldy or musty or something like that, you just can't wash that stuff out. That taste is there.
How can you tell when it's dry, when it's in the bag like that?
Well, you can almost feel it. Like when you bring it in after 2 or 3 days, you can feel it, almost feel it if it's dry or not. It's just never dry that soon. But you can sometimes even smell it, I think, if it's dry, and just how it feels, and sort of have to use your maybe imagination sometimes. But then it's not difficult.
Takes years of experience on that.
I had my sister-in-law said that her mother always dried it on the bed, on a white bed sheet, and she would just stir it several times during the day, and she would dry her puff seed that way. But I find that my method, I like that much better.
So then after it's dried, how do you store it until you're ready to use it?
I store it in a cloth bag. I never put it in Tupperware, seal it tight in a Tupperware, or in a jar. I know some who have theirs in a jar, and they seem to think it's okay, but then we always stored ours in a cloth bag, put it on the hook in a closet, and not in just a tight closet that is never opened. But I like it much better that way. I think it's the best tasting coffee.
So you feel that the air needs to get to the seed. So then you store it oftentimes probably in the same bag that you dry it in, is that right?
Sometimes. Sometimes I put several together, and oftentimes I don't. I'd rather work with a lighter weight bag. And one time my husband we had quite a bit of poppy, and we didn't have a very big place, but he put hooks in the garage, in the ceiling, and so we had it hanging there in the garage, and it worked also.
Well, that whole process sounds very interesting.